As we move over into the New Testament, we're going to look at what Jesus and John says in Revelation about the wrath of God. Do they say the exact same thing as the Old Testament? No. A number of principles remain, but one principle is totally negated and destroyed and subverted, and that's this: that evil, violent powers like Satan work with divine permission. Jesus and John will get this and destroy this idea. Totally dismantle it and annihilate it. And they will say, no, they never ever worked with divine consent and in cooperation. Never. The seed of that idea that Satan is not working with divine permission is found in Daniel 10. You'll see the link above. We've already dealt with this, where Daniel is praying and an angel comes to him and he says, I've come to give you an answer to your prayer from God. God sent me 21 days ago, but the spirit prince ruling over Persia, who's now keeping you guys captive, he blocked God's will. So they're not working in harmony and in cooperation anymore. These powers are at war with God. They don't work in cooperation or consent or permission with God. This opens up the window for the New Testament. Look at what Jesus says about the devil and evil powers. He will never, ever say that these powers that cause violence and sickness and destruction work with divine permission and consent. He totally destroys that idea. That's the idea of ancient Israel. It's not the idea of Jesus, Paul, or John. So let's have a look what Jesus says about, does God cause suffering? And if Satan causes suffering, does he do it with divine permission? No way. Luke 13, 14 to 16 in the New Living Translation. Listen. But the leader in charge of the synagogue was indignant that Jesus had healed her on the Sabbath. There are 6 days of the week for working, he said to the crowd. Come on those days to be healed, not on the Sabbath. But the Lord replied, you hypocrites. Each of you works on the Sabbath day. Don't you untie your ox or your donkey from its stall on the Sabbath and lead it to water? This dear woman, a daughter of Abraham, has been held in bondage by Satan for 18 years. Isn't it right that she should be released on the Sabbath? They cared more about animals than they did about people, and that's a completely different subject. But here it's very clear. She was sick. In fact, she was made sick through satanic bondage, and she said the devil made her bent over like this for so many years. He's kept her a prisoner. I've come to set her free. There's nothing in the sayings of Jesus to indicate that Satan was working with divine permission. Because if Satan was working with divine permission here in this story, then Jesus, by setting her free, would be going against something that God gave his okay to. No, this is not the view of Jesus at all. Let's have a look at John chapter 9, another story. A guy's born blind, and Jewish people went up to Jesus and asked him, who sinned that he was born blind? And they believed everything attributed back to God. Remember, even if it's Satan doing it with divine permission, they still attribute it back to God either way. So who sinned that God either struck this guy? Did he sin, or did his parents sin that he's born blind? And even if you say the devil did it, for the Jewish people of Jesus' day, they believe he still did it with divine permission. Jesus gets God right out of this. God did not strike him blind or allow Satan to strike him blind at all. And he will get right in the face of Moses. Exodus 20 verse 5 shows the idea, yes, the second commandment. Exodus 20 verse 5 will reveal that God will visit the sins of the parents onto the children for third and fourth generation. Whether he does it direct or he allows Satan to do it, God is implicated in this. Look at this. Exodus 20 verse 5, English Standard Version says this. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, the other gods, the other statues. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers to the children, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Wow. God passes on the consequences of the parents' sins for 3 and 4 generations. Who sinned that God visited this iniquity onto him? Get it? Did God do this to him? Who sinned that God struck him? And there's more. In Deuteronomy 28, we will see that not only could you be struck blind for the sins of your ancestors, but you could be struck blind by God, or him allowing the devil, for your personal sin. Who sinned that he's blind? You know, he got whacked. His family or him? Well, let's have a look at him now. Deuteronomy 28, 15 and 28 says this. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all his commandments and statutes that I command you today, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. You disobey me a little bit, and all these curses are going to come upon you. As if Jesus would have said something like that, right? This is the Jewish view. I'm a Christian. Look at verse 28. What are the curses that will come upon them, and who will send them? Verse 28. The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness. Whether the Lord allows the devil to do it or whether the Lord does it directly, this is the Jewish mindset. God is ultimately attributed with what he does or what he allows. Did God have any role in this whatsoever, this man being blind? Who sinned that God allowed him to be struck blind or struck him? Him or his parents? Look at Jesus' answer. He overturns the ancient Hebrew mindset. John 9:3, English Standard Version. Who sinned? Him or his family for God to do this or allow this? He's going to say God had nothing to do with it at all. 9:3. Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents. Well, hello, that goes right against Exodus 20 and goes right against Deuteronomy 28. Had nothing to do with his sin, but they believe if something bad happens to you, you've done something bad, and then God struck you down. We've been through all this, and Jesus said his blindness didn't come from God. Oops, that goes against Isaiah 45:7 that says God does all these things. Can you see? Jesus overturns the ancient Hebrew view. It is not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. And then he healed him. The works of God is not to allow Satan to strike you blind or strike you blind for your sin or those of your ancestors. The works of God are not to allow or to strike with blindness, but to heal. No wonder they hated Jesus. He threw out one of the most sacred cows of ancient Israel, that the buck stops with God. And Jesus said, God didn't allow it. God didn't do it. He's blind, and the works of God is to heal, not to allow Satan or he himself personally strike. More on Jesus next time.